and I will be talking to you about social justice today.
My name is Brian, and I will be talking to you about the Now Foundation.
My name is Christopher, and I will be talking about the death penalty.
My name is Patty, and I'll talk to you about DNA exonerations and.
I'm Anna Ross, and I'll talk to you about the death penalty as well.
My name is Primavera, and I'll be talking about the Now Foundation.
Okay. Imagine a society where wrongful convictions were less likely to happen. Imagine a society where women could be equal to men in all aspects of life. Imagine a society where people didn't have to go through the dark times that haunt them before they are put to death. We're talking about social justice, and our definition is the equality among society regardless of what your ethnicity or what your race is. Minorities can face social injustices and then form groups and join movements to fight against these injustices. I'll be talking about the Innocent Project. It's a nonprofit organization, and it's a council where attorneys get together and they take on cases where DNA can prove their innocence. 336 people have been exonerated through this process of DNA exoneration. Their main goal is to exonerate the innocents. It's to improve this law, reform, and support. They provide direct counsel for victims of DNA. They use a groundbreaking DNA technology to help them with these cases. People that have been exonerated, they served an average of 14 years. 20 of these people were formerly on death row. And you can see the social injustice in this case because 70% of these people that were exonerated through DNA were actually minorities. I found this article on innocenceproject.org that shows that statistic. My personal experience is one time me and my brother were playing hide and go seek, and there's this hill with flowers on it, and we kind of tore up these flowers, and so the cops called us, and it kind of scared me a little bit as a kid because the color of my skin could have affected the outcome of that situation, and I didn't know whether or not what could have happened to myself.
And so the Innocence Project, next, they try to improve the law, and they're doing this by working side by side with Congress, state legislators, and local officials to create these policies that will prevent any misconvictions. And they're all doing this while trying to reform the courts with this program called strategic litigation. And what that is they're trying to address the leading cause of wrongful misconvictions. And they found that their statistics prove that false testimonies tend to be the cause in 72% of cases that they've taken on. Their next thing would be to support the exonerated. So they're talking to these convicts who are about to be released, and they're trying to get any personal documents for them ready, they're trying to find their family members so that they can contact them. And they're doing this basically to ensure that when the convicts are released, they have a stable living situation. Next, we're taking a look at this chart, and what the chart is doing, it's breaking down all 325 exonerations into 4 different categories. And like I said, 72% of these are because of eyewitness misidentifications. And the way that I saw this relate to the class was Brian Stevenson's EGI. What he's doing is he's exposing the corruptions in the system while trying to resolve them by means of legal steps and trying to appeal to the courts. And the way that I saw this relate to myself was not entirely, it was because back home I would see my neighbors being harassed by the local police, and that's not to say that they were good people. They were usually related with like gang activity, and I feel like their Hispanic descent had a lot to do with how the police treated them, and they could have easily been one of these people who were put in jail for little petty crimes, and they could have had their future ruined. due to government misconduct.
And similar to the DNA exoneration, based on LA Weekly, 1 out of 10 convicts have been set free due to new evidence. And death by race has an immense role. In the past 30 years, studies have shown that if you have colored skin, there is a better chance of you being put on death row. And your peers are all white. So when they're on trial, all of the people that evaluate you, they're all white. So how could that be a fair trial? And exoneration of innocent men and women. Since 1976 till 2005, there have been 1,414 people that have been executed, and 156 have been set free due to new evidence. And the cost is very important when it comes to the death penalty. From the money that they could be saving, they could be put into programs, and such programs have been known to help crime in the city. If kids are more active in different programs, it has been shown that the crime has been reduced. And during my life, I have seen racism throughout all my life. I grew up in a neighborhood where there would be no whites. It would only be blacks and Mexicans. And I always thought that was interesting. And looking at all the statistics going towards skin color, it just amazes me, and it's incredible. It's incredible just because this is a cruel punishment, and it's just been known to be more racial towards different colored skin.
According to the stats on the NCADP website, the organization has successfully abolished the death penalty in 7 states plus the District of Columbia, and they are currently having a campaign underway to abolish it in 5 more states. As for us in California, we still practice the death penalty, but we have not had an execution in the last 5 years. I had a great interest going into this topic because we had gone into real life cases of convicts undergoing into death row and the reasons that we've been doing for Just Mercy. And it shows how unjust the system can be when officers can influence the evidence to accuse people who could potentially be innocent. I realize in society today we have strayed away from racism, but we've gone more towards being racially biased, whether we want to or we don't. An example of this would be a video we saw in class of 3 people stealing a bike, and one of those 3 received extreme reactions compared to the other 2, and that one person happened to be African American. With cases like the death penalty being so extreme, how are we to decide who is to live or die when we are affected by being racially biased?
Now that we've gone over the National Coalition to Abolish Death Penalty, we can discuss the wrongdoings in a particular gender group. Just this past year, I've experienced a change that will be in history forever. On June 26, 2015, after many years of protests, parades, and many denied protections and rights on the LGBTQ citizens, same-sex marriage was announced legal nationwide. This affected me personally because I have family friends who are lesbians and were denied the right of marriage until June of last year, who can now celebrate their love for one another through marriage. Having said my experience, it connects to our next movement, which is National Organization for Women, otherwise known as NOW. This movement was established in 1986, and it is the largest feminist activist organization in America. They work to raise the social position of women in our society. They fight for the protection of reproductive health options and Planned Parenthood funding. They also fight for pregnancy discrimination in the work environment and employment issues such as the salary gap. They also fight for ending violence against women and also work to improve the rights of the LGBTQ citizens. As stated on the NOW Foundation website, They work to inform the general public of these issues, and they make this possible through public speaking, conferences, seminars, training programs, and educational materials. This movement is not only important to our group, but it is and should be important to everyone. These gender issues affect the social justice that women, gays, and lesbians deserve. This National Organization for Women is fighting for the rights that all of us women are born with. Also, this movement connects to our class because we will be going over the gender roles later in the semester.
Now that you got basic information about the NOW organization, we will now go into their legal protection they provide for women across the country. So there are services for women who report injustice in their families, such as women that are being battered, abused by their husbands, and one goal they have in the end is to protect their children. They address discrimination against women in family courts. So that also has to do with sexism. This correlates with the book Just Mercy because Bryan Stevenson stands for underprivileged and fights for a bigger fight than himself. Some cases, like I said earlier, are sexist towards women today, and it's very rare, but it still happens and it needs to be addressed. Like I said, they both stand for a bigger fight and they are both the underdog. According to the NOW website, all volunteer committee. Most of it is parents, grandparents, and activists. They have a professional group of organizers, attorneys, paralegals, and advocates, which is also across the nation. They develop collective experiences and combine their intelligence together. They have expertise in family law. And if there's one thing they want to get across is promoting justice and equality for women and the nation. So my personal experience, believe it or not, was watching the VMAs in 2014 when Beyonce performed. And her performance stood out to me because the fact that she was fighting for one thing, and at the very end of her performance, it said feminists in the back. So that correlates because she has the empowerment and her status to spread the word to people that need help, to get the word across what feminism is. And this, it emphasizes the fact that if you have a social status that is very high, you can help others around you. So what we went over is the Innocence Project, which liberates the innocent, the National Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty, which prevents the death of innocents, and the National Organization for Women who protect human rights of females. These issues are occurring all around us, and they're constantly shaping the way we view our society.